Welcome to a new episode of Out from the Horror Box. And I want to say thank you guys for listening to today's episode. What I really want to start off with before I get into everything is that my friend Ambrose Martinez Jr. He used to help host this podcast before it was Out from the Horror Box, when it was just the Horror Box podcast. It was me and him, and that was our podcast we did together. And before that, we had another podcast with his cousin called It's Not That Bad. He quit that podcast pretty early on. He was dealing with some stuff, and he'd been dealing with stuff all of his life. Just the cycle of, drinking, binge drinking, and then getting clean, maybe doing something here and there. And I learned now, just a little over a week ago, that he had passed away. And I just wanted to, dedicate this podcast to him, this episode, but just the continuation of it. I know that's what he'd want from me, to keep going. Even though he tried his best to get better, get help, but ultimately there's only so far you can do that, where you're just going through the cycle of doing whatever you can to forget your pain and the world that you're living in. Especially when, someone near to him had just passed away. His grandmother, who had taken care of him since he was a young kid. And he was having to fill a role of a parent. And he was going through a little bit of turmoil with his immediate family and extended family. And I think ultimately it just pushed him into a spiral that he just couldn't get out of. And when you're in that spiral and you're not asking for or reaching out to get help, you're willing to do pretty much anything. And ultimately, that's what he did, and it caused him to overdose. It's a strange feeling when you're expecting someone to, reach out like they normally do. Say, hey, what's up? To call and check in. To just say, hey, have you seen that? Hey, have you seen this? And then they don't. I remember seeing on Instagram that his account had been deactivated a little bit before. So I wonder, if he was trying to start something new, or maybe he knew that he was trying to do something worse. And I just remember that I received a call the day before I was told what happened. A missed call from him. I tried calling him back, and I even texted him. And I just want anyone out there who's listening to this, just understand that sometimes the world fails you. and people around you fail you. But there are people willing to extend their hand to help you. And you should find those people. I know it's hard sometimes. It's hard to keep going on this and letting you know how I'm feeling. But sometimes you just need to tell everyone, or even just someone in particular, or even just a group of people, to say, hey, I'm not doing too good. I need your help. And that's all you have to do. That's all you have to say. There's always someone who is willing to help you. Just don't keep it inside. Don't let it ruin your day. Don't let it ruin your week, month, year. Do what he never could. He could never see past tomorrow. That was one thing that I think complicated his situation a little bit further, too, is that he couldn't see past tomorrow. He always wanted things to work out today. But when you're going through things, tomorrow seems like a long time from today. And I've felt that way before, but you know what? You got to get up. You got to look at tomorrow and say, there's another tomorrow, and there's another tomorrow, and then there's another tomorrow. And the people that I'm leaving behind are going to hurt. They're going to ask themselves what they could have done more. That's what I've been asking myself. Whether or not I should have answered the phone as soon as I could. Whether or not I should have kept trying to call him, kept texting. But would that have just delayed the inevitable? I'm not sure. But thank you all for being here, listening. For those of you that are, I just needed somewhere to talk and somewhere to let my mind expel the things that have been building up in there. Sorry to start this episode off with such a down note, but thank you for letting me vent a little bit. But today I do want to get into some news, get into some stories. That's about it. This week has been, a little dour for me. So I just want something to take my mind off everything. And that's what I try and do for you guys all the time, as much as I can. So let's get into some news stories.
This is the fucking news.
First up for news, we got something from Jesse Eisenberg, going to star in an upcoming Sasquatch film. Oscar nominee Jesse Eisenberg has signed on to play a Sasquatch in his next film, a feature directed by the Zellner brothers. This is according to a report in Variety. David and Nathan Zellner, they're independent filmmakers with a reputation for being quirky, are planning a Bigfoot movie, and Eisenberg, known for The Village, Zombieland, Social Network, Batman vs. Superman, Dawn of Justice, will don the hairy suit for this unusual part. He's quoted as saying to Variety, "The next film I'm doing is for the Zellner brothers. They're these brilliant directors who I've wanted to work with for a long time. I'm playing a Sasquatch, in full makeup, in full body hair. No lines, I grunt, but no lines, and I'm so looking forward to this." No further details on this bizarre project have been revealed, but the Zellners actually have some background with Bigfoot. Back in 2010, the brothers released Sasquatch Birth Journal 2, a short film that showed a Sasquatch giving birth and then bathing in a nearby body of water. The short was even nominated for the Sundance Short Filmmaking Award in 2011. I'm not a huge fan of Jesse Eisenberg, but I will say it is kind of strange to get someone who's been nominated for an Academy Award to play basically the monster of the story. This is a part I feel like would go normally go to maybe more of a character actor, or someone who's more used to donning like prosthetics and stuff like this, to rather than play a part where essentially like you said, he has no lines. He's in full makeup. I would kind of compare it to the Grinch a little bit. That is Jim Carrey though, so he is kind of a character himself. But I feel like he is a good enough actor to where like he brings this performance to this, like with the mask, like he was able to transform that character a little bit more and make it his own. For this, I don't know what the point of having Jesse Eisenberg as the Sasquatch is, but maybe there is. Maybe that's the whole point, is that we'll be able to get a better feeling for this character and this story, because it's not just like some random big dude that they got to play Bigfoot, or some random person to play like a baby Bigfoot or something like that. You know what I mean? Like, I think it might be for something a little bit more than what we're seeing, unless it turns out it's just they were like, yeah, we want to get Jesse Eisenberg as a Sasquatch, and that's literally the movie. And it's nothing more than him just grunting for like an hour and a half, and nothing else happens, which would be weird. But I'm trying to keep an open mind with this, especially because it sounds ridiculous, but it sounds like something I'd love to watch. It kind of reminds me of The Man Who Killed Hitler and then the Bigfoot. I think that's what the movie's called. It's with Sam Elliott, where he like is like a Nazi. Essentially he kills Hitler, and then he tries to kill Bigfoot, which I think he does in the end. I don't know. I don't remember. I just remember it was like it has a ridiculous title, and I just remember like him fighting the Bigfoot is ridiculous. But like, see, like even that, like, why would you put like an actor that is of I'm not gonna say of higher esteem, but you know what I mean, like that's known for more of their talkative roles. They're more of a talkative person, like especially in the Social Network, especially in Batman vs Superman. He's more of a talkative person. Like that's what you kind of get with the Jesse Eisenberg, especially like in Curse. His characters talk nonstop. So for this to be a little bit different, like that's why I'm wondering what they're gonna do. So, I mean, kudos to them to get somebody like this to go all full in on makeup and body hair. Can't wait to see where they go with this, and maybe we'll see it make like its debut at Sundance too. Who knows? Can't wait to see that from the Zellner brothers. John Carpenter teases his return to directing. Legendary genre film director John Carpenter teased the possibility of returning to the director's chair in the future. Carpenter exploded into mainstream popularity after the release of 1978's Halloween. The landmark film is largely considered to be one of the best horror films ever made, and Carpenter's distinct directorial style was heavily praised as one of the core reasons the film was so effective. Although Carpenter is largely known for his work in horror, his large filmography has covered many genres. Films like Big Trouble in Little China, Escape from New York, and Assault on Precinct 13 expand past horror, highlighting Carpenter's ability to craft a compelling narrative across genres. Carpenter hasn't directed a film since 2010's The Ward. It is largely considered one of his weakest directorial efforts, and Carpenter has since drifted away from filmmaking to focus more on his music career. Before the release of The Ward, Carpenter had already taken a nearly 10-year hiatus from feature film directing. He cited burnout as the main reason for his step away from the director's chair, until directing 2 episodes of Masters of Horror revived his interest in the medium. However, that renewed interest seemed short-lived, as Carpenter has mostly stayed out of the filmmaking scene since The Ward came out. In a recent interview with the Daily Beast, Carpenter revealed that he may be returning to the director's chair sooner rather than later. When asked if he would ever direct another feature film, Carpenter remarked that he's working on a couple things. But he also mentioned that they wouldn't happen in the immediate future, as he doesn't want to risk potentially catching COVID-19. Here's a quote from Carpenter himself. I'm working on a couple of things, but I'm not doing anything for a while, until the world comes back and rights itself. It's insane now. It's nuts. I'm not going to go out there and get sick. This is awesome news. Honestly, this is so good to hear that John Carpenter hasn't fully, lost his interest in directing, especially because he gave us, I listed quite a few, but I mean, Escape from New York, Halloween 2, he produced Halloween 3, but then also The Thing. He did Vampires. He also did In the Mouth of Madness, Prince of Darkness. These are, all of his movies are amazing, and I would love to see him continue. I mean, even The Ward was not great, but I mean, it wasn't bad. It sure did not feel like a John Carpenter film, I will say that. But I would love to see his style now. Just go back to the way you used to do things, John, but just apply it to now. And I feel like we'd get this brand new style that would be, well, not brand new style, it'd be an old style, but in this brand new world, or this world of digital and effects that we never got to see before, or we barely started to see in the late 80s, early 90s, but just that all got clipped because studios just want nothing but big money makers, and now it's even worse where they want franchises and stuff to continue on in perpetuity. But I would love to see him come back with something small, like a Jordan Peele. Just come back with something, knock it out of the park and be like, I'm back, bitches. That'd be awesome to see. John Carpenter, something with John Carpenter's whatever film again. I mean, even one last time before, I mean, he is a little bit older, so I'm just saying. But love to see it. Can't wait to see what he does, even if it's just to produce again. John, we want you back. Killer Klowns from Outer Space, the game, invades consoles and PCs in 2023. I mean, honestly, who saw this coming? We might not be getting a film, but the Killer Klowns are back in a video game form. Debuting at Gamescom this afternoon. Debuting at Gamescom this week was Killer Klowns from Outer Space, the game, a new asymmetrical multiplayer game coming from TerraVision Games and Good Shepherd Entertainment in 2023 for consoles and PC. Honestly, you can go right now to their official site. I think it's still up to sign up for the beta. I already did. I did it as soon as I saw it come up, and as soon as I could. It's based on the iconic 80s film, which we've talked about on here. In the battle between Killer Klowns and citizens of Crescent Cove, team up and use your wits to harvest humans or save them from the alien invasion. You can play as the Killer Klowns as you cooperate in a team of 3 players, utilizing their outlandish abilities and weapons as you hunt humans. Or you can fight back as a team of 7 human citizens of Crescent Cove. Pick your class, explore the city for valuable loot and weapons, Avoid getting caught by clowns and try to survive. You can choose from 5 classes of killer clowns and humans, each with their own class and abilities that you can unlock by leveling up. Humans share a pool of multiple respawns per match, so communication to beat back the clowns is key. According to the developers, upon release, you'll be playing on a map pulled straight from the film. They also say that they have big plans for future seasons that will keep you updating your strategies for a while. It's going to be on PC via stream, PS5, PS4, Xbox, and it's going to be on PC via stream. It's going to be on PC via Steam, PS5, PS4, Xbox One, and Xbox Series. And honestly, the trailer for this was amazing. They got them down perfectly. Like, they look like straight up from the movie. Like, they came to life from the movie and they just put them straight into here. And honestly, like, it doesn't look that bad. Like, they look amazing. I think it's just from the fact that the original character models, like the masks and the physical masks that they used, were so cartoony and over the top and outlandish that it works really well, at least for this, like, to translate it into like a 3D model. And honestly, if you were to go that route of like to do like a 3D generated like clown for like a movie, like, honestly, I think it could work if you just take straight up from this game. Because, like, if you go right now and you go on their website and you just look at, or you even just look at the trailer, like, you'll see what I'm talking about. They look really good, or at least for now, it looks pretty good. I want to see what they like look like in the game, like when you're actually playing. But they straight up look like they pulled them straight from the movie, and we're like, here you guys go. Look, like here's the movie. Play it as a game. It looks amazing. I was not expecting this, honestly. I wish we got a new movie, but this is just as awesome. Killer Klowns is like one of my favorite films of all time. I can sit and watch it all the time. And to have a game finally to kind of just expand on things too is pretty awesome. Like, I love the fact that they're going to use like the balloon dogs and the balloon animal dogs or whatever they're called, and the guns that you use, like the cotton candy guns and the hammers and stuff that they have in the film. And then just think about like the possibility. And I love that the Kyoto brothers are coming, or like teamed up with them. They came back to help with this, so you're getting it straight from them, from the creators too. It's not like some company just was like, oh, we're gonna make it just to cash in, and it's just, here you guys go. I do not normally play like the multiplayer online, like cooperative thing, like that type of game. But for this, I kind of want to try it just because it seems like it's pretty cool, and maybe it might get me into like liking that type of game from now on, or maybe I'll be at least pique my interest into that kind of genre. But I know that it's kind of like the Friday the 13th game, where it's one person is Jason and the rest of them campers, and you're trying to survive, and Jason's trying to kill everyone. So it's kind of like that, but I like the idea of having multiple clowns and then like a bunch of humans trying to take you on. It's not just one clown going around. It's like a group of clowns. And I would love for like, as it goes on, maybe you could do like, you can up the amount of clowns that are like, you know what I mean? Like maybe make it like 5 versus 7. Make it a little bit more challenging, and then maybe later we can do like something where like the like Clownzilla comes into it, and it's like Clownzilla versus like maybe like everyone's a human, and everyone has to fight Clownzilla and try and kill it. That would be awesome, honestly. Like, God, there's just so much I feel like you could do with this, and like even expand past just Crescent Cove, which is where the setting is for the film. And I feel like you could expand past that, and I think that's what or they say they have big plans for future seasons. I feel like that's what they mean is like maybe they might expand past here and maybe we might see them in a setting that we've never seen them before. Maybe we might see some clowns that we've never seen before that they had talked about doing, or who knows, honestly. But still, I love this. This is amazing. I just love the fact that Killer Klowns went from being, like this kind of just cult classic that if you knew it, you knew it, and now it's like Spirit has like a bunch of merchandise. They have like their own Funko. They have this game now, and so maybe hopefully now we'll get with all this. Maybe now we'll get a film, like even if it's like something small, I'd be okay with that. Or even just something, right? Love to see something from this. God, I can't wait for this next year. I can't wait for I want them to email me so bad to be like, yeah, you're part of the beta, and I get to play it before everybody else. But I'll keep you guys updated on that too. And when the game comes out, I'm probably gonna get it as soon as it comes out. Yeah, but let us get into some spooky stories. So here we got 12 stories, some of ghosts, some cryptids, a little bit of the glitch in the Matrix, and we'll wrap it up with a couple of UFO stuff and aliens, and that'll be it for this episode. It'll be a little bit of a shorter episode, but guys, let's get scary. Our first story is called Matt's Here. Growing up, there was this girl who always freaked the fuck out of the other neighborhood kids. For example, she told all the girls that in the forest behind her house there were dead, bloody people in it. All the kids freaked out and told their parents, which resulted in all the dads doing a search in the forest, only to find Hot Pocket wrappers and empty beer bottles. After that, all the neighborhood kids refused to go near her, including me. A few years later, my parents got a divorce. The day that the movers came to my dad's house to get my mom's stuff out, the girl comes over out of nowhere. She said that Matt didn't like that my parents were getting a divorce. My dad ended up telling me that Matt was her imaginary friend that was often too physical. Even though I stopped being friends with her, her parents were still friends with my dad. Her parents told my dad that Matt could control the lights, even making the power go out one time. Matt also knocked on doors at night, but if he was ignored, the banging on the doors would start. 2 years after my parents' divorce, my dad decided that he would invite the whole family over to catch up. I was begging my dad not to, but he said it would be nice. So when they came over, my dad said to show the girl my bedroom, since I got a new TV. I show her to my room, and she's acting normal and complimenting my room. I was still creeped out because she just sat on the floor while I tried to put a movie into my DVD player. And I shit you not, out of nowhere, mid-conversation, in the most deadpan voice, she said, "Matt's here." Her parents ran into my room and dragged their daughter out and went home. I refused to sleep in my bedroom for weeks. I haven't heard much from that family ever since then. I heard that Matt still controlled the lights, but I don't know if he is still around. Even to this day, when the lights flicker or a bulb breaks, I still freak out. Creepy. That's very creepy. It's weird too that her parents are just very nonchalant. Well, at least kind of were nonchalant about like telling her dad or his dad that, or whoever this person who wrote this or who typed up the story, was about, like, or maybe they were freaked out. That's why maybe they were like super freaked out. That's why they're telling him. But like the fact that like, oh, like you ignore him, he's like starts banging on all the doors at night. He makes the power go out. Like that's creepy. And then not only that, like, ooh, like, oh, that like Matt's here. It's like also like this this poor girl, like, yeah, like, okay, maybe she probably shouldn't say the things that she's saying, but it sounds like she's seeing something, and like for her to have like no friends at all, kind of sucks. Especially trying to deal with like something like this, like some kind of entity that's attached itself to you. Very, very creepy. Our next story is called Gym Bag Glitch. When I was 11, I lived out on a very rural farm in a town of maybe 800. I had to stay in the after school program waiting for my babysitter to pick me up after work. I was severely bullied by all the other kids, but I had one friend named Danielle. In a hurry to get away from being bullied, one afternoon I left my gym bag behind in the after school classroom. I got home, and a few hours later I called Danielle, who was in the same after school class as me. We were talking, and I mentioned that I left my bag there. She said she found it and had given it to a teacher who said she'd give it to me the next day. Well, that was that, and I told my mom where my bag was. The next morning it was super foggy, the kind of thick fog you could only see 10 to 15 feet in front of you. I walk outside and go to take the trash can up the road for the garbage truck. We got up very early to feed the horses and other animals. Sitting on top of the trash can was my gym bag. It was wet, like it had been out in the fog all night. I was very creeped out, but my mom told me that I must have left it there. I knew I didn't because Danielle had confirmed I left it at school. I take it inside and use another bag for clean gym clothes because that one was so wet. I get to school and the after school teacher comes up to me and tells me she found my gym bag the day before and put it in her desk, but it was gone when she got to school that morning. There's a couple ways the bag could have ended up there. Firstly, we could have just been mistaken. I could have had my bag the whole time and I left it outside on the trash can, but I find that very unlikely considering both Danielle and the teacher told me it was at the school. And that reminds me of one story that happened to me. There's a movie theater chain here in Arizona called Harkins, and this was a long time ago. I mean, a long time ago. I had a like Super Mario wallet that was my brother's that he just like that I like hand me down, and I had like a couple of dollars. We went to the movies, and I had remembered I put it in, or I taken my wallet with me, and I took it out. Like my mom was there, and I was paying for. I think I bought like a cookie or something. I bought like a snack or something. I don't remember what I bought, but I took it out. Right, I took my wallet out. And I took out my money, and my mom saw me do this. Right, and I gave them the cash, and I put my wallet away, and we went to the movie. We watched it, and when we got done, I was like, "Oh my god, my wallet's missing. I think I dropped my wallet." So like we look and look, and we get someone to come help look for it, and they bring like the flashlight and everything, and we're looking and looking, we can't find anything. We're like, man, I'm so bummed out. I can't believe I lost that wallet. We get home, and I go to my room, and on the on one my, I think my dresser, there's my wallet, and everyone's like, well, maybe you thought you took your wallet, but you didn't take your wallet, you just took the cash. And me and my mom were like, no, we saw the wallet. Like my mom was like, I saw him take it out of his pocket. He had it with him. He opened it up, and then he gave the person the cash, and he put it back in his pocket. And for all this time, it's like I've never understood how that happened. Like, how did my wallet get from my pocket at the movie theater to my house? See, things like this, strange, very strange. This story is called Jenny's in the Basement. My mom told me the story of a large colonial house that we moved in when I was about 4, and I had an imaginary friend named Jenny. Apparently, my mom always had a weird feeling about the house, and one day, out of the blue, I told her that I had been playing with a little girl named Jenny. She thought it was just a phase, and I told her that Jenny wanted me to let the cat into the basement so she can play with it. She let me, and my cat never came back. That creeped her out. Then a few days later, I told her Jenny wanted me to come into the basement to play with her. She told me no and to go back to bed. I did, and when I woke up, I had deep scratches on my back and legs. My mom sent me to my grandparents and proceeded to look up stuff on the house. She found an old picture of the house and who used to live there. The house was built in like the late 1800s, and asked me if Jenny was in the picture. She said there was like 7 little girls in the picture and she knew who Jenny was, but I wouldn't have. I guess I pointed to Jenny without hesitation. She was scared because she had also learned that Jenny went into the basement and was never found after that day, so the family moved. After the incident with the picture, we moved out of that house. I guess that was way too much for my mom. I was 18 when she told me that. I still think about it, and I think of how scary the story is. Because it is fucking scary. That's scary as hell. Like the cat goes in the basement, it disappears. The little girl went into the basement, she disappears. What's wrong with the basement? Is it like the basement in Are You Afraid of the Dark, where it's the music? If you play the music, it causes the monster to come out of the behind the door, and it eats like people. But if you feed it like grants your wishes or whatever, as long as you keep feeding it. That's just so weird. That's kind of creepy when like you think about it too. When it's like she wants me to go down to the basement. It's like, why? What? Creepy, creepy little kids. That's why little kids are creepy. Because they say things like that, and it's like, stop, please. For the love of God, stop. Our next tale is called The Drive from Vegas. I never tell this story because of what I want others to believe about me, and because it truly scares me. In fact, it scares me more than anything else in my life. More than my rational fears, more than any real risk. This is the most terrifying experience of my life. It was 2008. I was recently married, and my wife and I had driven to Vegas from Flagstaff for dinner. After an evening there, we were driving back because we had no money for a hotel. I hadn't been drinking. I was of stable mind. It was late, and I was a bit tired, but I was young and had some coffee. After midnight and lightly snowing, my wife was asleep next to me as I drove, and I was listening to some AM country music. I like drives like that. I just relax and think. I don't believe in the supernatural. Even when I was a Christian, I was never into the ethereal world of angels and demons and ghosts. I never felt spiritual. But as I drove along on this empty road, I thought I heard my wife say something. I looked at her, and she was asleep, but I looked through her window and saw something running next to my car. It was about the height of the truck, maybe a little taller. He ran full speed. He had long dark hair and piercing eyes, and a nose like a muzzle, but to a point like a coyote. He had a beaded shirt with beads that made a shallow V across his chest. His arms were scrawny and face sunken and hairy. As he ran, he turned to me and bared his teeth. I immediately lost all breath from my lungs and was frozen. I gripped the wheel to control the vehicle and turned away from him and looked back. He was losing lateral distance from the vehicle, but still keeping pace. I turned back to the road and hit the gas. I looked over again and he was gone. I looked into the rearview mirror and saw nothing in the road. Nothing ahead. I sat frozen, holding the wheel and speeding down the road. I hadn't made a noise. My wife hadn't woken up. I didn't say anything. I didn't stop the rest of the way either. When I got to Flagstaff, I woke my wife. She went to bed, but I could not sleep. Even as I write this, I have a terrible feeling of dread. I spent tons of time in the desert, in the forest, camping, hiking. I feel fine at night in a cemetery. I have even seen flying objects and assumed a logical reason for them, but I have no explanation for what happened that night. I saw that. It happened. Maybe I fell asleep. Maybe it was a dream, but I don't personally believe it. That thing was there. Years later, I recounted the story to someone who lived in the area who was a native. They told me that what I saw was a skinwalker. Right now, I'm afraid. A grown man can be drawn close to tears from this. I don't believe in gods. I don't believe in any angels or ghosts, but I believe in skinwalkers. Yeah, that's gonna be a big no. That reminds me of God. See, like I have a tale for everything. When my brother and his boyfriend they were going up north because we live here in Arizona. That's Flagstaff's here in Arizona. They were going up and they were driving, and he said that along the road, the like road that they were traversing was very like dirt, like kind of. I think it was like more like dirt road ish. But he said that like when he looked over out on the road, there was like this thing that was crawling along the ground on its stomach, and the way he described it was kind of like a big like gator, but it was hairy, like crawling. But then he also showed like text a picture of like the rake, and it was kind of like it kind of looked like that too. So I don't know what the fuck he saw, and I don't know what the hell was up there. There's things out there sometimes that it's like, what are these things? Are they cryptids? Are they monsters? Are they skinwalkers? I don't know, but it's creepy, and like this story is creepy too, because this is the type of thing I think of, like when you're driving late at night, like you're driving like a long trip, and you're in the middle of nowhere, it's pitch black, and what if you just look over and there's something there, like running, like keeping pace with your car? That's scary as hell. Like, I just can't. Just imagine seeing that. Yeah, you look over and there's this thing just stand like not just stand like running with you as you're speeding down the road. This story is called "The Boy in the Polaroid Picture." This apparently happened to my dad. He told me a couple years ago about this one event that freaked him out. It was around 2002 when we had just moved into a new house. My dad was unpacking while my stepmom was at work and I was at school. My little brother was homesick and sleeping in his bedroom, so my father is unpacking and found his old Polaroid camera and starts playing with it. He decides to sneak into my brother's room to get a cute picture of him sleeping. He was about 6 at this time and really adorable. He opens the door and sees my brother curled up on the ledge right beside the window, his face turned away from my dad and against the glass. My dad is standing by the door and snaps a picture, quietly closing the door. As the picture develops, my brother suddenly comes out of the bathroom at the other end of the hall, crying because he was sick. My father is astonished and knows there's no way for my little brother to get from the bedroom to the bathroom in mere seconds and without being seen. He opens the door quickly to check inside, and nothing is there. The clincher is the picture. After getting my brother settled and back to sleep, my dad takes a look at the photograph. What should have been my brother sleeping with his head turned away became a picture of a little boy facing my father, the lower half of his face blurry and red. My dad doesn't believe in ghosts, but he was pretty freaked. He showed the picture to my stepmother and her sister. They kept it in a box in their bedroom and apparently used it as a nice conversation piece for a few years until we moved out of the house. One of our basement walls collapsed and it was unsafe to live there. It seems to have been lost in the move. I never had the pleasure of seeing the picture myself, but loads of my family saw it and they all agree it was creepy. We never experienced anything else abnormal in the house. See, like with that, it's like you have evidence. I mean, obviously he can't show now because they lost it. I mean, it's a little convenient, but I mean, at the same time, like that's I mean that's perfectly normal. There's things you lose and moves constantly. I moved from back home, um, like what, like 2 years ago, almost three years now. There's a bunch of stuff that I'm like, where did that go? Where's that? Where's this? But I know I have this stuff somewhere probably, but like I can't find it. Um, so you lose things pretty easily when you move. This is it's just creepy though that it's like He saw it, took a picture, and then the picture was not only there, like it showed something in the photograph, but it also was like different from what he saw. Just creepy all around. This next story is called Creepy Calls. Every so often, maybe once every 2-3 months, I get creepy, threatening phone calls from a blocked number. I've been getting these calls for over 5 years now. I usually get them at night. They only ever say one thing before hanging up, and it's always somebody whispering things in a disjointed sort of way. The best way I can describe how it sounds in text is that I get things like, I am going to kill you. Look out your window. And the one that unnerved me the most, I can see you. I can see you. I can see you. I can see you. It had been going on and off and on for years now. I've stopped answering blocked, unknown numbers, but whoever it is just leaves their messages as voicemail. I'm sure that it is just someone pranking me, and I've never felt like it is a real threat. But the strange thing about it is I honestly have no idea who it could be. None of my friends from back when I started are the type to prank call people with creepy threats, let alone keep it going for years. Creepy, super ridiculously creepy. Also, like, why wouldn't you like try and track? Because I think you can. While it's an unknown number, I feel like there's a way that you can figure out who is calling you with those, like even with a blocked number, or maybe not. I don't know, or unknown number. I don't know. But that's so creepy. Just think about that. Like every so often, you'll just get a call, and it's like, whoa, please stop, stop saying that. Stop saying I'm gonna kill you. Look out your window, or that you can see me. Some kind of screen shit or something. You know what I mean? Our next tale is called Lights at Sea. My father used to live on the Marshall Islands in the Pacific Ocean, so him and his friends would routinely go fishing in the ocean very early in the morning. As you can imagine, being in the middle of the ocean on a fishing boat gave him and his friends an amazing view of the stars with almost no light pollution. One night, we were out fishing past midnight, and what looked like 3 different color lights appeared in the sky above the boat. At first, they appeared to be planets or some other type of light coming from space. However, these lights got larger. They appeared to be moving under their own influence, each one moving separately and of its own accord. My dad and his friends were freaked out, but too scared to move or turn on the engine of the boat. Suddenly, they began rotating together in a tight loop. Their speed increased, and the lights descended on my dad and his friends in the boat. At that point, all of them were sufficiently freaked. That's when they decided to book it, turned on the engine, and roared away. For a while, like the craft was floating right above them, following them. My dad was absolutely terrified. Everyone was screaming. This craft was keeping up with the boat at top speed, which was going probably about 30 miles per hour. The craft then flew away at an impossible speed, horizontally, streaking out of sight. My dad's not a believer in the paranormal and is actually quite religious, so when he told me this, I couldn't believe it. To this day, him and his 3 friends insist that this is what they saw. And it's crazy because it's like, I mean, that's not exactly what happened, but that's similar to what happened to me and my friend when we saw the lights here up near Camelback. Not near the mountain, but near on the street that runs by Camelback, the road. And we saw like 3 lights or a couple of lights in the sky, and we had just picked up his cousin from work, and we were going east, and bam, they were just up there, and we pulled over, and by the time we pulled over, they were gone. Like literally in like the blink of an eye, they were gone. Crazy. This story is called What Was That Flash? One night, my friend and I were playing basketball around midnight. The topic we were discussing at that time, the existence of aliens. We were playing around just practicing layups when a bright blue flash of light came from behind us. The flash was one of the brightest things I'd ever seen. It flooded the entire basketball court and surrounding area in blue light. It surprised both of us, and we both turned to look at what the source of the light was. I know this is going to sound absolutely insane, but it was a small round metal floating orb with what looked like a camera lens on the front, sort of like Guilty Spark from Halo. The orb emitted one more blinding bright blue flash of light while we looked at it, then it floated behind a building and out of sight. My friend and I took off after the orb, which in hindsight was probably a bad idea. We were able to catch up with it just in time to see the orb float off into the sky away from us at a leisurely pace, then disappeared out of view once it had floated high enough that we could no longer see it. For the purposes of disclosure, both of us were sober. In fact, we were straight edge at the time. Neither of us had been doing drugs or drinking for months prior to this incident. Both of us turned at the exact same moment and asked each other, what was that flash? So it wasn't as if one of us had a hallucination and the other simply played along. Freaky stuff. See, weird things like that. Like, okay, maybe they make it up. Who knows, right? But, like, if this is true, then, like, what the hell are they doing? What are they looking for? What are they looking at us? Like, right? Sounds like they're taking photos or they're filming or they're doing something. They're taking stock of something. So I don't know. I've never seen something like that where they kind of describe it with like a camera lens on it. Creepy, creepy, creepy. This next story is called The Chime. I dog sit as a side gig. One day I got a call from my client Nick and Josh, and Nick explained to me that Josh had cancer and the two would be returning home to Australia so that Josh could be with family until the end. I was asked to live at their house and watch Toby, their adorable cockapoo. After about 2 months, I was home and the chime that notifies you that someone has come through the front door or garage went off. I freaked out, knowing the doors were locked, thinking someone had just broken into the house. I searched all the rooms, ensured all doors were locked, but the chime would periodically go off. I told myself that perhaps a battery was dying. Despite that, the chime would go off at random intermittent times. The next day, I checked my email and had a note from Nick letting me know that Josh had passed away the night before, surrounded by loved ones and family. The door chimes worked perfectly from that point on. I believe it was Josh coming home one more time. And honestly, that reminds me of, I got a story for everything. That reminds me of, the house that I live in now. Originally it was like a doctor and like a couple other people, but he was really sick in the end, and he was literally like dying. And towards the end, they did move him to a hospital, so he didn't die here in the house. But we think that because we hear every so often like someone trying to, we've heard, I haven't seen anything in a while, but we've heard like the door handle like jiggle when no one's there, like someone's trying to get in. You can see shadows of somebody moving past the window, like they're trying to get back into the house. We at one time our doorbell button was broken for a long time, but somebody rang the doorbell, and we were all freaked out because no one had rung the doorbell in forever because it was broken, and we didn't know how they rung the doorbell, but no one was there. I think it was like in the middle of the night too. There's times where like when my brother used to live here with his girlfriend, they used to sleep in the living room, and we have a fireplace, and they said that sometimes you could hear people talking through the fireplace. And then we have a garage right near the kitchen, and the garage door, he said, would sometimes he could hear like someone jiggling it, like they're trying to get in. So he'd constantly like lock it. I had to sleep out there for a while too when I moved back, and it was kind of creepy. You could hear. There was times where I could hear like a dog walk, like because my dog. We have two dogs, and their collars like have like a little, like have metal on them, so like like, um, kind of clinks when they're walking, and I could constantly hear that in the middle of the night, like a dog walking around. One time, because I had put a mattress on a futon, and I was sleeping out there, and yeah, if you sat on the futon wrong or the bed, whatever, like on the edge, it would tip over. But I was laying in the middle of the futon, and I remember it felt like somebody sat on the edge because then the futon tipped over, and I almost fell out of bed. I caught myself, but I literally like rolled all the way off the bed because I was in the middle of the bed. It freaked me out. I had to sleep with the light on for a while because it just like you can hear. Sometimes you could hear people like walking around. it it was a little freaky. I'm glad to be in a room now, not out there. There was one time where I'm not sure if somebody was just messing with us, but somebody rang the or was knocking on the door, and then like we are the type of people who don't just go answer the door and go in and look and see who it is. So they're knocking on the door, and then they start knocking on like the window because from like the door next to the door or near the door there's like a big picture window, and then there's a wall, and then next to that's the kitchen on the other side, and there's a window into the kitchen. But they were going back and forth between all the like the door and the two windows, knocking on the windows, knocking on the door, like doing like the shave and a haircut 2 bits like type of knock. And it was creepy. And then we're trying to like we're all freaked out. It's like me, my mom, and my sister. Then my brother was in the living room playing games, and he's like, "Hey, stop that!" Like yelling, and we're like, "Shut up," because we couldn't see anything. Like all my mom could see because we were in her room, and from her room, sometimes if you look out her window, you can see like who's knocking on the door, but we couldn't see exactly who it was. She could only see like a red hat or something red on their head. And we like called my brother and we're like, "You need to get home as soon as you can." And like he was all right because like he was just around the corner. I forgot where he went, but he was on his way home anyways. And by the time when it stopped, we like looked out the window and we like, okay, the way that our house is like the street is curved, so if you walk off one way, there's a side street, but it leads just down 2 streets, and that's if you're looking to the right. You would see somebody walking away if it was somebody like they couldn't get away that fast. If you go to the left though, you could kind of sneak behind like the side of the house, but then you'd be like in our yard and you'd be in the neighbor's yard. If you keep walking straight into the street, you can still see everybody. Like you can see everything. Like it's pretty plain and open. There's no way of hiding. And we were like, how did they get away so fast? It was weird and creepy, and I don't know. I kind of think it was something else that just it might have been some person playing a prank, but at the same time, it was a little weird for someone to do that. Like, what are you doing it for? Weird, 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 weird world. This next story is called Central Cali UFO. I posted this before, but I wanted to share it again. When I was 16 years old, I worked at my dad's vineyards. The ranch was almost 1,000 acres and it was out in the middle of nowhere near the foothills in central California near Chowchilla. Fresno is the closest large city about 35 minutes north. My UFO story, which spans 3 days, begins one night during harvest. Wine grapes are harvested at night when the fruit sugars are at its highest. My experience started one night about 2 a.m. while I was out wandering down the roads driving a large tractor that pulled a large water tanker that sprayed water onto the roads to keep the dust down during harvest. I was at the easternmost edge of the ranch listening to my Sony Walkman, listening to Boyz II Men, when I noticed a red light out in the field to the east of me, towards the Sierra Mountains. This red light did not look too far away, probably out about half a mile. I was driving south going about 5 miles per hour, watching the red light, thinking it was a helicopter and pondering how strange it was that it was out in the field. Then strangely, I noticed the red light coming closer to me, and I began to get nervous. Never for a moment at this time did I believe that this was an alien craft. I remember thinking it was a helicopter that was about to fly over me and possibly harass me. Because it was 2 a.m. and I was out in no man's land, the red light got closer and closer, and suddenly, when I was about 100 yards out, the red light turned into a bright white light shining directly at me. I was then positive these people in this helicopter meant no good and wanted to harass or even harm me. So I put the tractor in high gear, which is no easy task if you've ever driven a tractor while still in motion, and took off back to the office that was about 1.5 miles away. I got back into the office, the water pump on the back of the water rig blaring, and it ran with no water. And I began to recall what had just occurred. It was then and only then that I began to realize or contemplate if what I saw was actually a UFO. I never saw the helicopter, nor did I hear it. All I saw was the red light coming towards me that suddenly turned brilliantly white, which gave me a very formidable feeling. Moreover, being absolutely creeped out, and I didn't go back into the vineyards to work that night, watering down the roads, as I had done. Oh, God damn it. Moreover, being absolutely creeped out, I didn't go back into the vineyards that night and fell asleep in the office. The next day, I didn't think too much about what happened and went back to work that night, watering down the roads as I had the night before. I definitely remember staying out of the easternmost portions of the ranch and staying close to the harvesters where all the workers and machines were hard at work. It was then that I had the most bizarre experience of my life. I was watering down one of the main roads where the gondolas dumped the grapes into the bins of the big rigs that they were to be taken to the winery. There were 4 harvesters that night. One would start down a row, followed by the second, third, and finally the fourth. As the 4th harvester went into the vineyard, I was approaching from about 20 yards away. All the bright lights of the machinery and tractors lit up the area, and there I saw hovering over the harvester about 30 feet in the air and 100 feet from me, and a dark gray craft about the size of a very large SUV. It appeared to wobble in the air and was shaped like 2 bowls glued together with a short cylindrical top. I could see rivets and round nodules protruding here and there, something I associated to sensors. I could see no windows, just dark gray metal hues with its alien characteristics. Terrified, I began to get my tractor closer to the workers, wanting to point out what I was witnessing. But something inside of me made me pull away from them. Fearing they would panic by seeing the hovering craft. I remember a particular woman worker whose job it was to walk behind the harvester, staring at me like I was crazy, angrily looking at me for getting my tractor so close to her. I very intently believe that I have never been that genuinely scared before or since. Again, I raced back to the office in a daze of fear and played sick to my dad so I didn't have to return to the work. The 3rd day, and still frazzled from the previous night, I was out and about on the ranch on one of the ATVs, feeling rather safe from the daylight. I was looking about the sky, and there, high in the sky above the riverbed that ran along the vineyards, was the craft. I was far enough away where it didn't frighten me, so I stared for a moment, then it instantly flew off into the distance, disappearing from sight. Shocked, I remember stopping my ATV and just sat there, wondering what was going on. So there you have it, my UFO story. To this day, some 20 years later, this memory still boggles my mind. Did I actually see a UFO? Did I see a spacecraft piloted by or operated by intelligent beings from another planet? What exactly did I see? Did that really happen? I suppose I will really never know. I've told my story to people throughout the years that look at me like I'm insane. Once I told my social psychology professor about my experience, and he was. Once I told my social psychology professor about my experience, and he said I was in a wakeful dream state, and it was all a dream or hallucination. I know what I saw really happened, and I know what I saw was real, but it's still hard to grasp what seeing such a thing really means. If what I saw was real over the 3 day period, then that means reality in which we live in is very different than the reality that our society has been brought up to believe, all of which is fascinating. Yeah, this story's a little out there and crazy, but that's how most of these stories are. Most of them are like this, where like they see something or they interact with this thing or these things, and it's just like weird or strange, and they if they have a series of interactions with them, it's like they constantly are seeing them, and people look at them like they're crazy or say, oh, like they're in a like waking dream or whatever. It's like, does that ever really happen to anyone? Like a waking dream? I mean, maybe, but at the same time, like, I don't think that's what happened to this person. Just because they clearly remember everything, and yeah, maybe they didn't lose like time or anything like most people do, but still, I think something happened, and this is a result of that. Our next story is called The Alien Cyclops of Sagrada Familia. On August 28th, 1963, 7-year-old Jose Marcos Gomez Vidal went to play with his friends Fernando and Ronaldo Gualberto at their home in Sagrada Familia, a poor neighborhood in Belo Horizonte, Brazil. Around 7 p.m., after eating dinner, the boys went out to the backyard to wash a coffee strainer. While Fernando stood a small distance away from them, Jose dipped his head and arms into a barrel to collect some water. I believe Ronaldo was hanging around the side of the house, away from the other two boys. Suddenly, Fernando noticed a glow coming from the top of an avocado tree. When he looked up, he saw a UFO hovering above the tree's branches. The craft, which was spherical and had a pair of antennas on top, was completely transparent. It held 4 human-like passengers sitting inside, one of whom sat in the front of the machine that appeared to be a control panel. The passengers were about 6 feet tall and dressed in spacesuits. They all 4 had only one eye. 3 of them were thin and bald, while the other looked like an overweight woman with blonde hair. As Fernando gazed at the sight in awe, the UFO shot 2 rays of yellow light. Once his boots touched the earth, the creature began to walk towards Jose, who was completely unaware of what was happening since he was still collecting water. Worried that the Cyclops was going to abduct his friend, Fernando panicked and tackled Jose. Jose fell to the ground, and Fernando got back up and faced the Cyclops. Now all 3 boys were aware of their visitor. Instead of moving any further, the Cyclops moved his head and made hand signals. Its mouth moved and spoke a few sounds that was nothing like the boys had ever heard. The creature then turned around and stared back at the UFO. Fernando, spotting a brick on the ground, picked it up and aimed it at the Cyclops. The Cyclops suddenly faced the boys again and shot Fernando's hand with a yellow light from a triangular crest on his chest. Fernando dropped the brick, and all 3 of the boys became calm and frozen. The Cyclops spent the next few minutes talking to the boys in his language. The boys didn't understand anything the Cyclops said, but he sounded like he was serious. After pointing one of his fingers at the moon, the Cyclops began to walk back towards the UFO. One source places Fernando's attempt to hit the creature with the brick at this point. As the Cyclops walked back, Jose asked if he would ever come back. He shook his head affirmatively, plucked a plant from the ground, then waved his hand at the UFO. The UFO shot out 2 rays of light again, and the Cyclops slowly floated back up into the vehicle. As the boys continued to watch, The UFO flew eastward and disappeared out of their sight. After the UFO was gone, a wave of fear settled over the three boys. Jose ran into the Gualberto's house and hid under a bed. Fernando and Ronaldo were also badly spooked and told their mother, Maria Jose, about what happened. She sent a neighbor girl to fetch her husband, Alcedes, from a bar. When Alcedes returned home to check the backyard, he found large footprints, like those of a boot, near the water barrel. When Alcedes returned home to check the backyard, he found large footprints, like those of a boot, near the water barrel. Jose and his friends reportedly never saw the Cyclops again, and while the case was at one point investigated by a Brazilian ufologist, it has remained mostly unknown to the wider world. And this is one that I found on Reddit. Like, it was like linked to. This was it just like instantly popped up on me. I was like, oh my god, this is crazy. I've never heard of this. And they have like a drawing, which I'm going to post on YouTube when this episode comes out. They have drawings of like what this like craft looked like and what the Cyclopses, like whatever, what they looked like and everything. It's crazy. Like, and the fact that, okay, you could say maybe they faked it or whatever. And you could even say maybe the evidence of the boot too. But it's just kind of a strange thing to just out of nowhere make up. And the fact that like it didn't really give them any kind of message because it didn't speak a language that they knew is kind of strange. Not in a bad way, but in like a why are you trying to speak to them? They can't understand you. What are you trying to convey to us? And then like he points to the moon too, and it's like, what the hell does that mean? And was one that kind of just stuck out that I'd never seen before. And like it says, most people really have never heard of this, and I'm pretty sure that's true because I tried looking it up and I couldn't find anything on it. Like I was able to finally find some stuff, but this is a pretty good story. So our last story is about aliens again. I think we've had quite a few of them this time, which is pretty good. I know, last time we had some UFOs. Well, this time I didn't mean for this to happen, but I'm glad it did. I'm glad that we got a couple more. I think it's pretty easy to find some ghost stories, so finding like UFO stories is a little bit trickier sometimes. Some of them are just a little like, oh, I saw a light. That's my UFO story. So some of these are pretty good. And this last one, let's get into it. This is the last tale for today. It's the 1973 Pascagoula alien abduction. On the night of October 11th, 1973, co-workers Charles Hickson and Calvin Parker were fishing on the Pascagoula River in Mississippi when the two men suddenly heard a hissing sound coming from behind them. When they turned around, they saw an oval-shaped craft hovering in the air and flashing blue lights. A door on the craft opened, and the 3-foot robot-like creature floated down toward Hickson's and Parker's boat. The creatures were about 5 feet tall, with gray wrinkled skin, clawed hands, and slits for eyes and a mouth. The two men found themselves paralyzed and unable to resist being grabbed by the creatures. Parker fainted at this point, and they were then floated up into the spaceship with their abductors. According to Hickson, he was taken into a room full of light and examined in an oval-shaped probe that circled around his body. When the probe had finished its examination, the creatures floated out of the room and then floated Hickson back outside after 20 minutes. Hickson found Parker on the shore, crying and praying. The spaceship then left, and Hickson and Parker went into their car to calm down and try to make sense of what happened. Although afraid that nobody would believe them, Hickson and Parker called the Kessler Air Force Base, which recommended that they report the incident to the local sheriff. At first, the sheriff and his deputies were skeptical and thought the two men were drunk. When they left Hickson and Parker alone in a room with a secret tape recorder, however, they continued to talk as though the experience were real. At one point, Hickson told Parker, "It scared me to death, son. You can't get over it in a lifetime. Jesus Christ have mercy." The story appeared on a local newspaper headlines the next day, and soon news reporters and UFO investigators were crawling all over Pascagoula and harassing Hickson and Parker at their workplace. Hundreds of UFO sightings in Mississippi were reported in the next couple of weeks, including an encounter by some Coast Guardsmen with a glowing object moving underwater in the Pascagoula River. While Parker initially tried to keep his distance from the incident, Hickson gave media interviews and lectures about his experience, even visiting local schools. In 1983, he published UFO Contact at Pascagoula with investigator William Mendez, a full-fledged and rare book about the encounter and 3 incidents of psychic telecommunication he said he received in 1974. Until he passed away in September 2011, Hickson continued to insist that the story was true and that the creatures he saw were peaceful aliens concerned about the Earth. After participating in some hypnotic sessions, Parker recovered vague memories about what had happened that night. Unlike Hickson, he was wary of the attention he attracted and eventually moved out of the state. Over the past 2 decades, he has become more open to interviews and has even participated in UFO conventions. So this is what some skeptics have to say about the Pascagoula incident. Hickson and Parker's story made a big splash in national media back in '73, and some of the biggest names in the UFO investigation community, like J. Allen Hynek and James Harder, believe that the men were telling the truth. While Hickson and Parker did pass lie detectors, there were inconsistencies in the interviews Hickson gave to the media. Much of the story, in fact, had come from Hickson, since Parker said he passed out. Nobody else in the area, including drivers on a well-used highway, claimed to have seen the UFO. In an interesting article from the Committee for Skeptical Inquiry, noted paranormal investigator and debunker Joe Nichols suggested that the whole abduction was a vivid hallucination by Hickson. Hickson had drunk some whiskey after the abduction to soothe his nerves, and Nichols suspects that he and Parker might have been drinking before the incident. They fell asleep afterward, but Hickson suffered an episode of hypnagogia, a state of consciousness in which a person is between sleep and waking up. Hypnagogic episodes often involve the experience of paralysis, seeing lights, and feeling as though one is floating. While Parker might not have had a hypnagogic episode himself, he might have been influenced by Hickson and the hypnagogic sessions he had undergone. So, was this true? Did this really happen? It seems like these two people believe this happened because, like they said, they left a tape recorder for them while they were alone just to see what they would say, right? Because maybe they might be like, well, we got to get our story straight and this and that, and we got to like talk, like, you know what I mean? Like, you got to say this and you got to say that. Maybe they got to work things out. But the fact that they just kind of were just like scared still, and they were like, man, like still talking about it like as if it happened, is crazy in itself. They do have drawings of what this is, and I want to post those as well. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, it's a pretty creepy story where like you're just kind of out there with your friend, and then you get abducted, and then you're trying to explain this to people, and then some other people are trying to make it out as like, oh, like it didn't happen, but maybe it did. Maybe it didn't happen. Maybe like what they said, where they both passed out. But still, it is a strange story. I've always liked the story because it shows that even when people who've experienced things like this are by themselves, they know that it happened, so they're not going to be like trying to like incriminate themselves, right? Like why would they be talking about this as if it like was an incident that didn't actually happen? To them, it actually happened. It's just, yeah, this story is pretty creepy and pretty scary. But I will say that's going to be it for today's episode. Thank you guys for listening. Just like I say all the time, if you guys want, I'm open to read anything, to talk about anything you want me to talk about. You just let me know. You can reach out to me through email. It's going to be horrorpodcast@gmail.com. And I'll take any kind of suggestions you guys got. Anything you want to hear, anything you want me to look at, to review. Is there any spooky stories that you got? I'd love to hear them. You can always hit me up on Instagram or Twitter. Our Instagram @HorrorBoxPodcast. And I try and post as much as I can on there. I'm more active on our Twitter, which is @HorrorBoxPod. And, you can DM me there in either one. You can DM me on Twitter. You can DM me at Instagram. Just let me know. Is there something you want? Is there a video you want me to review? Is there some news I didn't talk about that you'd like me to talk about? Is there any like games that are coming out? Like I talked about Killer Klowns, but I mean, is there any other game you want me to talk about that it has to do with? I mean, I'll talk about Friday the 13th game. I haven't really played it too much. Just let me know. You can, like I said, I'm open to anybody, any suggestions. But till next time, guys, just remember that there's strange things out there that are constantly happening. And sometimes there's some strange things going on in your head. Try and get help with that, guys. Try and reach out to your friends as much as you can. Sometimes they're not always there for you. And I mean just like physically they're just not there. But just remember, your friends are your friends no matter what. They're going to be your friends till the end. For some of us, that end comes a little sooner than we expect it to. I'll see you guys in the next episode of The Horror Box.